Hey y'all, Kenny here. Thanks for joining me for part 5 of my Dreadnought guitar build. I finally have the finish on this guitar, and for me, getting a good quality finish is probably the most difficult part of the build. I don't have a spray booth. I don't have a climate controlled area to work in. For that reason, I use water-based finishes. I think they're the best choice for the hobbyist. On this guitar, I used KTM9, which is a urethane finish. This finish has been discontinued. I used up what I had left. I had just enough to finish this instrument. I've gotten good results with it. It looks good. I do think that if it's applied heavily, it does have a negative effect on the tone. And that's probably true of any finish, but more so it seems with this than any other that I've used. For my next build, I'm going to use this EM6000 from Target Coatings. It is a water-based acrylic lacquer, and they claim that this stuff burns in just like nitrocellulose. I'll have to see. Good thing about these finishes, nothing fancy is needed to spray them. I use this little touch-up gun from Harbor Freight. The process can be done over a 2-day period. You spray your first coats, wait 24 hours in wet sand, and spray your second coats, your final coats, and then wet sand and buff to get your final product. I failed to mention how I filled the grain on this guitar. It is the most open grain wood that I've ever built with, and that's saying a lot considering that I've used oak before. To fill the grain though, I used Aqua Coat initially, which is a clear water-based filler, and I've used it before with good success, but on this particular guitar the grain was so large that when I put my initial coats of finish on and got the guitar out in natural light, I could see a yellowing of the filler under the finish. And I can't really describe to you how that looked, but it was a no for me. So I stripped the finish and the filler off the back and sides, and I used a filler called Microbead that I bought from LMI years ago, and I tinted it to do my filling. I've used all kinds of fillers before. I've used epoxy, and I'm reluctant to use a power sander on an instrument after I get it built because my back and sides are already sanded down to dimension, and so I do all my sanding by hand. Epoxy works great, but it's very labor intensive to sand down. But all the fillers that you'll use require quite a bit of labor. I haven't found an easy way to do that yet. So I had the finish on this guitar. I had wet sanded, buffed it out. I was really pleased with the end result. I had the guitar on its side on this table. The only thing that was on the table were my magnifiers. I turned around and inadvertently bumped the guitar. It fell over, and as Murphy's Law would have it, it landed right on the magnifiers. Put a big gouge in the top. I was sick. I went home. I told my wife, I just don't think this guitar wants to be built. The next day I came down and I tried to do a repair. I worked on it off and on several days, and I just couldn't hide the defect. So again, I stripped the top. At that point I gave it some thought. I always wanted to do a French polish, a shellac finish. And so I said, why not give it a try? What can go wrong here? So I did a French polish. That's a long process. I'm definitely not an expert. It's my first attempt. So I'm not going to try to tell you how to do it. I watched some videos and I went at it. I enjoyed it, but you can only put a small amount of shellac on at a time, and that's done over quite a period of weeks. And or that's the way I did it anyway. But I'm pretty pleased with the result. Definitely probably would be trash to a professional, but for my first attempt, I think I did a pretty good job. So I did something that I've never done before with this guitar, and that is string it and set it up before I finished it. I bolted the neck in, and I made these little screws, and I was able to hook the strings on these pins that are sticking up. These are made in a hurry. I'm going to make some more with a large head. I'm going to drill a hole through to feed the string through. But there's a definite advantage there to having this thing set up. I'll probably have to tweak it a bit once I get the neck and bridge on, but most of my work's already done. I'm ready to get the neck bolted in, get the bridge glued down. I showed you in an earlier segment of the video how I attach my neck. I have the 2 1/4-inch stainless studs. They're just drilled and tapped into the neck, and I use a little bit of epoxy to secure those, and then I have these nuts. Just a really simple way to secure a neck. I have this caul that I use to clamp my fretboard down. I'll use that, and a C-clamp to clamp the fretboard extension down. My bridge, I made this little block of wood. These 2 bits serve as my alignment pins. These 2 screws will go through the top and into this piece of wood, which I'll insert inside the guitar. I'll screw these 2 screws in, and they'll clamp down the bridge in the center. Then the wings will be secured using this screw and a piece of metal on top of this little piece of rubber that I have for padding, and that'll clamp the wings down. Not very sophisticated, but to me it's easier than fumbling around with long reach clamps through the sound hole. So I have the neck in and the bridge is glued down. I've gone ahead and ringed my bridge pins to fit. I use the shank of an old file to do that. It's a trick I learned from Irving Sloane's book, and it works so well I've never seen the need to purchase a ringer for the job. You notice I have a pickup in the guitar. I've installed a Fishman pickup, and that was not the original plan. Again, Murphy's Law kicked in, and I developed a little crack right here in the waist. If you watch the early parts of my video, you know that I reinforced my sides, and so it was a really short crack. It was barely noticeable, but I knew it was there. I at first cut a sound port in the side, and didn't like that, so I opted for the pickup. So let me get my tuners installed, and I'll talk about setup. I'm using the Goto vintage tuners. They are collusion style with the waffle back covers, butterbean knobs. You can get these with an open gear as well. They're relatively inexpensive. I've had really good service out of these tuners. I like the reduced weight you get with the vintage tuners, whether they have the waffle back covers or they're open gear. But most of all, I just like the way they look. My nut and saddle are made from bone. I shape those using a file and sandpaper, and then getting finer and finer grit, and then finally polishing them. I use this little string spacing rule that I bought from Stuart McDonald. Now, you can do that mathematically, but this is a real time saver, not a necessity though. I have a setup gauge, an action gauge that I got from Stuart McDonald as well. It has string height at the bottom in thousandths. It also has a 1,000ths scale over here and a 64th scale over here, conversion chart on the back. It also works as a fret rocker. So that's almost a necessity. I build a lot of guitars without it, but again, a real time saver. Now, back here in the bridge, where your strings go in, you have a slot in your bridge pins, but I also slot the bridge and the bridge plate so that the eyelet on the string hooks under the plate, and the bridge is not the only thing holding the tension. To do that, I just have an old hacksaw blade that I modified. I've been using this thing for years. You can manipulate it and make the hole round, and then I have a couple little needle files that I clean up with. I have a set of fret files. These are the originals that I bought 20 plus years ago from LMI, and they're not fancy, but I built a lot of guitars using those files. Now I do my initial setup using a piece of fishing line. This is where neck angle's really going to come into play. If you watched the other segments of my video, I talked about getting the correct neck angle. And if you have an unfretted fretboard and you lay a straight edge on that fretboard, it should rest on the top of your bridge. That'll get you pretty close on neck angle. I leave about a 1/16 of an inch gap there because of my lightly braced top to allow for it to come up. So all our measurements are taken at the 12th fret, which is half the distance between the nut and saddle. So if we're 20 thousandths high, here at 12th fret, you'll have to remove 40 thousandths of material from the saddle to make that adjustment. So you see how quickly you can file your saddle down low if you don't get that neck angle correct. So these strings are an old set of takeoffs that my grandson gave me. I don't even know what brand that they are, but I'll get it set up with these and I'll let her sit for a week or so, and then I'll make some adjustments if I need to. So my target for the action is 110 on the 6th string and 80 on the 1st string. I'm at 95 and 65, so when this guitar settles in, I'm going to be pretty close to my target. Up here at the nut, I'm 22 and 14, which is perfect. So right now I'm chasing tune, but let's see what she sounds like. So I'm pleased with the tone. It compares to mahogany, I think. Has a good bottom end, but it's well balanced. It is a little tight because it's green. It'll open up here in a few weeks. You'll be able to hear a noticeable difference in the guitar. All I really need to do now is clean it up and get a pick guard on it. I'm going to leave it in the case for about a week and recheck this setup and make adjustments if I need to. But I'll give you a close-up of some of the detail. The bridge, the end joint, the heel of the neck, the tuners on the headstock. So I'm going to put it away, let it settle in, and when I get it out next time, it'll be ready for some extended playing sessions. Okay, so I have my pick guard installed, new set of elixirs on. I cleaned the interior of the guitar out, and I installed my label. My wife makes my labels. She also doubles as my therapist. And as much trouble as I have with this guitar, there was a lot of therapy. And so I'm sure she's as glad to see it complete as I am. The back and sides, I talked about wet sanding them. I started out like 1500 grit paper, worked my way to 4000. And then I use this Meguiar's Ultimate Compound and a foam pad and a drill that I got from O'Reilly's. And so it's possible to get a good finish without a lot of equipment. It just takes a lot of work to do that. The trash comment about the top comes with a story. I was doing a primitive skills demonstration at a historic site once, and I got a visit from the world's most interesting man. I had some deer hides that I had brain tanned. It was my first attempt, and he inspected those and deemed them trash. And so I told him I would take that as constructive criticism, but I also took it with a grain of salt as well. So I'm going to round out the video by having my grandson Gabe do a little picking for you. I have some other guitar videos in the works, and I'll be uploading those soon, so subscribe to my channel, and an attaboy would be nice. Again, thanks for watching.